And welcome back to Learning Davinci Resolve. And today we're going to look at the color page. And in the color is, well, where we can adjust color, but a lot of other things as well. Things like power windows and blur, sharpening, noise reduction, stabilization, a lot of other things are all done in color, where today color should probably be called effects or something like that, because there's a lot more that you can do than just adjust the color. So we're going to get into some of the things, the most common things you're going to want to do, at least to get started with Davinci Resolve. And then in future videos, we're going to go ahead and do more things and really learn how to take advantage of all the different features that are in here. So first, let's take a break and have a word from our sponsor over at Multicopter Warehouse. For all your DJI needs, turn to the experts at multicopterwarehouse.com, the #1 authorized repair center in the United States. See why Multicopter Warehouse has been voted #1 time and time again at multicopterwarehouse.com. Great, and welcome back. And here I've got my footage on my color page. It says no stills created. We'll get to that. We have our viewer screen at the top, nodes over on the right. Again, advanced topic. We'll get to that in another video, but think of those as being like layers. It's way more than that, but we'll get to that. Bottom left-hand corner, we have our color wheels. In the center, we have our curves, and on the right, we have our keyframes. Now, sometimes your screen may not look exactly like this, depending on the resolution of your screen. When I'm on my MacBook Pro, I don't see the curves because the wheels take up all this real estate in the middle, and I do see my keyframes. All these icons on this big row down here are all squished together. So depending on the resolution of your screen, it may look a little different than what you see here, so don't be freaked out. Just know everything is in the same spot, and you just have to click on some of these icons to get where we're going. So, first off, let's throw a little color on this particular image, and it looks all washed out because I always shoot in log. So this was an Inspire 2 with an X5S camera, shooting in D-Log, so it gives me a pretty flat image, allowing me a lot of room to manipulate it in post-production. So I think I'm going to kick a little contrast in there, probably go over to my other page and use the color boost option so that I'm boosting the lesser saturated pieces of the image. If I use saturation, it boosts everything, and that may not exactly be what I want. Color boost tends to do a little bit better for me. Now, right now I'm just looking at the image, but to see a really good representation of what this is, I need to turn on the scopes. So all the way over here on the right-hand side, this little wavy thing, I'm going to turn on my scopes. Now you may see this differently the first time. It may look something like this. And the one I'm usually the most interested in is the RGB parade. So I'm going to set it on a single and change the waveform to parade. And now I have what I'm looking for there. So turn it back on so it's just kind of embedded there. And I want to stretch these out. I want my highlights to be, probably close to this 896. I want my blacks to be pretty close to 0. And then I know I've got a good dynamic range going on. So going over to the color wheels, lift, gamma, and gain are somewhat analogous to shadows, midtones, and highlights. There's a lot of overlap there, so one will affect the other. Lift will affect gain. There's ways around that, which we'll get into in advanced color grading, but right now, just know that I can do lift, gamma, and gain, shadows, midtones, highlights, and what I want to do is I want to bump my gain up. It's pretty low there, so there, I'm just going to bump my gain up, which took out some of my shadows. So I'm going to pull my shadows down, stretch that out. Now I've got a pretty nice looking image going on here. And I can adjust the tint, the color temperature, mid-tone detail. I usually add just a touch of mid-tone detail just to sharpen it up just a little bit. I don't always use sharpening, but sometimes I will, just depending on the image. But when I have something that looks good, it looks good. I'm going to hit Command F, just give me a full screen there so I can kind of look around, make sure everything is looking good on this image. It is, so Command F again. All right, so we've done some basic color correction there, and let's kind of look around and I can show you some of the things that are going on in here. We're going to start over on the left. Camera raw, unless you're shooting in camera raw, let's not get into that right now. We can do color matching. If you have an X-Rite card, I often use the Passport Video, and I can have that card in the scene and use this to do a very quick color correction. So that's handy. Next icon is the color wheels, and under a lot of these there's submenus. So this is color wheels. There's the primary wheels, primary bars, and log, which is very similar to what we saw with lift, gamma, and gain, but they don't have quite the effect on each other as the primaries do. So if you want a little more detailed or a little more fine control over those colors, you can do that with the log wheels versus the primary wheels. Next icon over is the RGB mixer. So just another way of dealing with your colors. You can also set it into monochrome and then individually adjust the different colors that are in there. So you can decide, oh, I want my greens to be brighter or darker, things like that. So you have a little bit more control of individual things in the RGB mixer, especially if you're doing monochrome. The next icon there is motion effects. This is going to be noise reduction and motion blur. This is only going to be available if you've purchased the $299 Studio Edition of Davinci Resolve. If you're using the free version, this section isn't available to you. So if you want to purchase it, it's available at multicopterwarehouse.com or at our store DJI Colorado. So either one has Davinci Resolve Studio in stock for $299, or if you're just running the free version, don't worry about it. That'll be its own video. We're not going to talk about it since it's not in the free version that we're working on right now. So going over to curves, we have different curves. So if you're into adjusting S curves like Photoshop or something, you can do that directly in here. You can pick the individual colors that you want, red, green, or blue. And there's a number of very, very cool options in here. Hue versus hue, hue versus saturation, hue versus luminance, luminance versus saturation, and saturation versus saturation. So these allow different types of adjustments based on either the hue, luminance, or saturation. Now, let's take a look at this parking lot. To me, this seems a little on the blue side. So I want to take the blue, which is the hue, and reduce the saturation. So I'm going to do hue versus saturation. So now I get this color wheel or color bar thing in here. And if I take my eyedropper over to that, notice it put these markers here in the blue section. So if I pull this down, which is my saturation, look what I just did. I took the blue out of the parking lot. So these are really cool tools for manipulating certain types of colors or brightness things that you need to adjust. One thing that's really popular for us here during the winter in Colorado is the snow will have a tendency to have our shadows look really, really blue. So we have to take the blue out of the shadows, or sometimes the snow will even look blue because of the color temperature. So being able to use these tools to manipulate just sections of the image to make them look the way we want really gives us a lot of control when we're working in Resolve. Next icon is the Qualifier, and this is how we do things like chroma key, and where we can select an image within, or a color, saturation, or luminance within the frame to be able to do manipulation to it. So there'll be some really cool videos on how we do the Qualifier. Along with that is the power window, and that's how we isolate certain sections of a frame to do different things. If here, we'll just do a quick example here. I'll just throw a circle on here. And you can see as I did that, it created a mask. And with that mask, I can now manipulate other things. So I can, let's soften this up a little bit so we get kind of a feather to it. And actually, I'm going to do this the right way. I'm going to add a node over here in my node section. Now I'm going to do a power window because I don't want to lose the other things that I've already done to this image. So I'll do that. Let me soften it up a little bit. And then we'll go over to our colors and I'll drop the exposure down. Well, what I'm trying to do is actually highlight that center. So over here, where my power window is, I'm just going to click on this icon and reverse that. There we go. So now I have a highlight spot where I want it on the frame. Now, things that are really cool about this is I can then go to the next frame or the next icon here, which is the tracker tool, and track that spot, and it will follow it and know how then to apply that effect throughout the video. So that is one of the things that really, really sold me on Resolve. Now that was just a really quick and dirty example, but you can see how it actually tracks that highlighted spot right on that centerpiece, instead of me having to keyframe it constantly with every single frame like I would have to do in Final Cut or Premiere. So very cool feature with power windows and the tracking tool. Let's get back to our first section here, and I'm going to remove that, get back here. All right, now we're on the next icon here, which are our blur and sharpening. So that's where we do blurring and sharpening. Make sense? Okay, so we have that. Next one is for key input. If we're doing chroma key, we'll use this to fine tune the key that we're working on. Next icon is sizing. And again, not going to use this too much. I typically do it using the inspector in the edit page. I don't really find I need to do it in here. You can do screen blanking and create like anamorphic styles in here. But that's really about, I'm not going to get too much into that. The last icon is for 3D stuff. Again, that's only going to be in the studio version. That's not something we're probably ever going to touch. I doubt it. 3D video is its own topic in and of itself. So maybe we'll get to it at some other time. All right, going up into the upper right-hand corner here, Open Effects. This is where some of the built-in special effects are. So we have different types of blurs, coloring, generators, light effects, refinements. Now, some of these are in the free version and some of them are only available in the paid version. If you try and use something that is in the paid version and you only have the free version, it will tell you that you need to upgrade. It will still let you play with it. It'll just watermark it. So you can at least get an idea like, ooh, that works so good. I should probably go ahead and buy this so I have access to that feature. One of my favorites for that is the dehaze filter. I just think it does a wonderful job of dehazing. It really makes the footage pop. So I really like the dehaze tool. That was one of the things, along with the noise reduction and a couple other filters, that made me want to purchase Davinci Resolve. So again, with just like the other pages, the color page has a lot more to it that we'll get into as we talk more about color grading. But again, now you've got kind of a sense for what to do. You can adjust some colors. You can boost the saturation. You can, adjust some detail. You can have a little fun with manipulating your footage and making it look really cool. So until next time, this has been Kerry with Learning Davinci Resolve. We will catch you next time. Bye-bye.